Hey nerds, welcome back to Shenanigans, the channel where I talk about whatever I want. You guys, it's been a hot minute. Don't be mad at me. Don't be mad. Don't be mad. I know you're mad. Don't be mad. Today we're going to be diving into the world of Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Yeah. Okay. It's like if Shatter Me, The Selection, and the X-Men all had a baby, but that baby was a drama-filled soap opera starring rebellious, horny teenagers, okay? That's what we're working with here today. So I'm very excited. I've been wanting to make this video for a while now, but I've always been like, I can't do it, like, it's too much work, it's not the right time, because I know I really want to go balls to the wall with this and, like, explain everything to you. We're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the release of the first book, so what better time than now? Let's talk about it. I know that a lot of people don't like this series and think that it's cringe or cliche or, like, just don't like young adult fiction in general. If you're one of those people, I kindly ask that you leave this video because it is actually my favorite series ever. Guys, it's literally my favorite series. It's literally my favorite series ever, so please don't be mean in the comments. Another disclaimer, this book actually came out in 2015. And I know there's another book series that recently came out, I think around 2023, that is very similar to this. This is your disclaimer right now that Victoria Aveyard did not copy that author, and I don't want to see anybody in the comments being like, oh, she copied. No, she didn't. The other author copied this. I will not stand for the Victoria Aveyard slander in my comments. Thank you very much. I actually started reading the other series, TM, and didn't finish it because it was so similar to this, and it PMO, quite honestly. TSPMO! You guys, TSPMO! Shut up. Also, trigger warning for violence. This is gonna be a long-ass video. I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to finish it all in one sitting. My script is over 20 pages long. When I tell you we're talking about this book, we're talking, okay? We're sitting here, get ready, get a snack. We're in for the long haul, bud. Strap in and strap on, here we go, okay? Before we actually get into the summary of the story, there are a couple of things that I need to explain to you so that, you know, everything makes sense. First, we're going to do a couple of character introductions just to get the ball rolling here. So our main character is Bone Marrow? Our main character is Mare Barrow. She is that bitch, okay? The story is told from her POV. This is like her story, okay? She has a mom, a dad, 3 older brothers who are conscripted into the war, which we'll get to in a second, and a younger sister named Giza, I think is how you say it. I'm not 100% sure, but I've heard other people say it like that. So honestly, if I pronounce anything wrong in this video, it's like not my fault. So then we have Killorn Warren, who is Mare's best friend since childhood. His father died in the war and his mother bounced. So now he is fishing Ken. His job is fish. So now that we have a basic foundation, a good understanding of some of our beginner characters, our starter characters here, okay, I need you to understand some of the world building. Mare lives in a country called Norta, which is an absolute monarchy and has been at war with another country called the Lakelands for 100 years now. Sick, okay? They're fighting over disputed land. Here's Norta, here's the Lakelands, this is the land they're fighting over, okay? So Mare lives in a small, poor village called the Stilts, which is aptly named because all the houses are on stilts. I'm pretty sure Victoria has said that the Stilts is based on Albany, New York. If I can geek out for a second, that's one thing that I like about this series is that since it's a dystopian novel set hundreds of years in the future, likely some post-apocalyptic scenario, the formation of the country remains very similar to modern-day America, though the land is redivided into different countries. But the names and cities are very similar to their predecessors. So, like, there's a city that we'll talk about a little bit later called Nairse, which is, like, reminiscent of New York. And there's a city called Delphi, which is modern-day Philadelphia. I really like those details because I feel like it pushes me more into the story and makes me feel like this is real, you know? Like, this is really something that could happen 100 years in the future. But I've seen online that some people don't like that because it takes them out of the story and brings them back to reality. I don't know. Kind of a relevant tangent, but you wanted an analysis. I'm analyzing. Mare will turn 18 in a matter of 3 months, and all 18-year-olds get conscripted to fight in this war. Unless they are an apprentice to someone, then they're exempt. So, like, Mare's best friend Killorn is an apprentice to a fisherman, so he's exempt. Mare's sister Giza is an apprentice to a seamstress, so she's also exempt. So Mare, on the other hand, is a thief by trade, and she's not an apprentice, so she will be conscripted on her next birthday. Most people who are sent to the war either come back with life-altering injuries, like Mare's dad, who lives in a wheelchair and has an iron lung, like a mechanical lung, okay? He doesn't live in the iron lung. But anyone who tries to run from conscription will be caught and hanged. Both scenarios are not ideal to Mare. So, forget the war for a second, we'll come back to it, but the main conflict of this book takes place between silvers and reds. Silvers have silver blood and reds have red blood. Complex material, I know, but try and keep up. Silvers each have an ability, like a superpower, that they inherited from their biological father. They can be physical abilities, like controlling fire or water, or mental abilities, like mind reading. I'll go more into depth later about each silver and like their specific abilities, but for now just know that in contrast, reds are normies and don't have abilities. Womp womp. They live in a social hierarchy wherein silvers rank higher than reds. Mare and her family are reds. We have our foundation, now let's get into the actual story. Chapter 1 takes place in the stilts. Mare and her best friend Killorn are attending First Friday, which is an event that occurs fittingly on the first Friday of each month, wherein school or work ends early so that everyone can gather in the arena and watch 2 people fight to the death. These arenas are built like all around the country so that everyone can go to one on the first Friday and like watch this. It's a very Hunger Games-esque type of practice, but like less deadly because the 2 people fighting in the arena are silvers and they have abilities. And the silvers can also be healed afterwards by silver healers. So it's like lower stakes, but they can also die sometimes, so like, much like the Hunger Games, the point of First Friday is to gather all the reds together and force them to watch a stunning display of violence, thus reminding them that they are inferior and discouraging them from fighting back. This particular fight that we see is between a strong arm, so someone with super strength, and a whisper who can control the thoughts and minds of people. The strong arm isn't important. The whisper is named Samson Mirandus. He'll come back later, put a pin in it. Samson wins by entering the strong arm's mind and making him stab himself. Okay, so even disregarding the entire book, the entire story, the end of chapter 1, I think, is just pure poetry. In school, we learned about the world before ours, about the angels and gods that lived in the sky, ruling the earth with kind and loving hands. Some say those are just stories, but I don't believe that. The gods rule us still. They have come down from the stars, and they are no longer kind. Let me read that again. Are you listening? The gods rule us still. They have come down from the stars and they are no longer kind. Victoria! Victoria, you cooked! Victoria! Chapter 2 is mostly for world building purposes. We see what Mare's world is like, her family, and her living conditions. This is the before of it all, okay? We learn that Mare's town, the Stilts, is located downriver from Somerton, which is a city where the royal family spends their summers. Mare's family receives a letter from Mare's older brother Shade, who has been conscripted and is currently in the army. Part of it reads, "We've been called away from the front as Dad the Bloodhound has probably guessed. It's nice getting back to the main camps. It's red as the dawn up here. You barely even see the silver offices. And without the choke smoke, you can actually see the sun rise stronger every day." So Mare goes to bed that night and is awoken by Killorn. This is where things start to pick up. He tells her that his master, the fishing dude, who is giving him the apprenticeship, has fallen and died. Killorn is almost 18 and hasn't finished his apprenticeship, so he's gonna be sent to war. Like, chapter 3 goes into a little bit more detail about the war. My boy Killorn is stressing, okay? His birthday is in a week and he does not want to go into war, and I don't blame him, okay? I mean, kind of insane because, like, only another week. Like, he did most of his apprenticeship, but it's like, one more week, like, let my boy go. Come on. Give my boy a break. He's an orphan. So Mare has an idea to get her and Killorn smuggled out before conscription. She goes to Will Whistle, who basically runs the black market out of his wagon. The old-timey wagon, not like a red kid's wagon. Anyway, she's been working with Will since she was 9, selling him the items that she stole. She asks him to help her and Killorn escape. Will says no at first, but then invites her in to discuss.
Alright, that guy was a tough bargainer.
This is where we first meet Diana Farley, described as a blonde girl no older than Mare, with a gun tucked into a red sash belt stamped with suns at her hip. Quote from Mare, "She's a foreigner, an outlander, and an outlaw at that. Just the person I want to see." Period. Mare requests her and Killorn be taken somewhere safe from the Silvers. A long beat of silence stretches through the wagon. I can feel the night wasting away, taking precious minutes from Killorn. Farley must sense my unease and impatience, but makes no hurry to speak. After what seems like an eternity, her mouth finally opens. "The Scarlet Guard accepts, Mare Barrow." Lit, we did it. Except Farley only agrees to transport Mare and Killorn somewhere safe for the price of 1,000 crowns, which is like a form of currency, per person. That's kind of a lot. Mare says it's enough money to feed her family for a year, and they only have 2 days to pay it. Mare accepts the terms, even knowing that it's basically impossible to get that much money in time. Mare explains the situation to her sister Giza, and the next day, Mare and Giza sail upriver to Somerton, where Giza does her apprenticeship. It's a beautiful city with many different types of stores, and Mare is in awe of how different it is to the stilts. It's crawling with people, especially rich silvers, so there will be more valuable things to steal. Good. However, it also means the stakes are higher because Mare has to be more careful. Bad. What concerned me the most are the black video cameras hidden in the canopy or alleyways. There are only a few at home, at the security outpost, or in the arena, but they're all over the market. I can just hear them humming in firm reminder, someone else is watching here. Mare starts walking around looking for things to steal when she passes by, I think it was a bar that had a TV screen, and they're reporting on a terrorist attack of the capital, Archeon. I think that's how I've seen some people say it Archeon. Again, if I pronounce something wrong in this video, it's literally not my fault. It is, but like still. A group called the Scarlet Guard takes responsibility for this attack. Sound familiar? The Guard sent a video to the news, and it features Farley giving a very passionate speech. Not quite "if we burn, you burn with us," but still up there in terms of vying for equality, okay? "We are the Scarlet Guard, and we stand for the freedom and equality of all people, starting with the Reds. You believe you are the masters of the world, but your reign as kings and gods is at an end. Until you recognize us as human, as equal, the fight will be at your door. Not on a battlefield, but in your cities, in your streets, in your homes. You don't see us, and so we are everywhere, and we will rise up, red as the dawn." So, in summary, the Scarlet Guard is a resistance against the monarchy run primarily by Reds. A mob breaks out in Somerton because of this terrorist attack. Silvers begin turning on and torturing innocent Reds, trying to get answers out of them about the Scarlet Guard. No one knows anything. Mare sees one Red being drowned by a nymph in the street and decides to abandon mission. She goes back to find Giza and get out before they close the gates and stop letting people out. Mare has a very Bella Twilight New Moon moment where she sprints through a fountain. A frothing blue wave knocks me sideways into churning water. It's not deep, no more than 2 feet to the bottom, but the water feels like lead. I can't move, I can't swim, I can't breathe, I can barely think. My mind can only scream nymph, and I remember the poor red man on the avenue drowning on his own 2 feet. My head smacks the stone bottom and I see stars, sparks, before my vision clears. Every inch of my skin feels electrified. The water shifts around me, normal again, and I break the surface of the fountain. Air screams back into my lungs, searing my throat and nose. I don't care. I'm alive. So Mare then sees Giza, and they both agree that they have to leave, and then it says, "I can't help but look back at the square as I follow her. The few Reds left behind cower on the ground begging for mercy, and in the fountain I just escaped from, a man with orange hair floats face down." Interesting. So before they can leave the city, Giza tries to steal from a silver to help Mare, and she gets caught. In punishment, a security officer smashes the bones in her hand, making it impossible for her to sew, which is a big problem for Mare and her family because Giza was meant to finish her apprenticeship and then open her own seamstress shop and basically like make enough money to get them all out of poverty was the plan. But now she can't. Mare doesn't have enough money to get her and Killorn out of there, and basically everyone is screwed. Not wanting to see her family's disappointed faces when they find out what happened to Giza, she takes her sister home and then runs really far away. She comes across an inn and sits outside, stealing from drunk men as they stumble out into the night. She tries to steal from one silver man and he catches her, but he lets her go and gives her a coin. He's described as tall and muscular, with black glossy hair and red gold eyes. Mare assumes because of his kempt appearance that he is a servant to a wealthy silver family because they get paid well. The man's name is Cal. He seems charismatic and very interested in Mare as a person. They have a short but meaningful conversation wherein Mare tells him that she steals because it's the best she can do. She also tells him about how her sister snuck her into the city that day and what happened to Giza. He listens, says he feels sorry for her, and gives her another coin. Mare gets home and finds her dad waiting outside. The power went out in the house and he was checking the utility box, which is broken. Talking about her dad. Long ago he called us ants, red ants burning in the light of the silver sun, destroyed by the greatness of others, losing the battle for our right to exist because we are not special. We did not evolve like them, with powers and strengths beyond our limited imaginations. We stayed the same, stagnant in our own bodies. The world changed around us, and we stayed the same. I'm sure this wasn't, on purpose, but something about this kind of reminds me of the Just One Ant speech from A Bug's Life, if you guys have ever seen that. Anyway, Mare touches the utility box, and it turns back on. Interesting. Mare then goes to bed and reads through Shade's letter again. The phrases, red as the dawn and see the sun rise stronger, stick out to her. She realizes he's part of the Scarlet Guard. The next morning, 2 security officers come to Mare's house and tell her she's been summoned to Somerton. One of the officers is named Walsh. Mare is told she was summoned to be a servant for the royal family. Changes into a servant uniform and deduces that Cal put in a good word for her to get the job. We learn that today is a special occasion. It is Queen's Trial. This is basically when all the eligible young women in the high houses, which we'll get to in a second, show off their talents, and the crown prince will choose one to be his wife and the future queen. It's for breeding purposes to determine who will provide the strongest and most superior offspring. The high houses are basically rich, influential families of silvers that have ties to the monarchy and make up the king's court. So, for example, House Samos owns the iron mines and controls the production of weapons for the war. Each high house has a different ability. For example, the Calors, I call them Calors. The whole time I was reading it, I called them Calors, and Victoria Aveyard has said that it's pronounced Calor, so I'll try to pronounce it Calor, but if I slip and say Calor, it's not my fault. Each house has a different ability. For example, the Calors are burners, the Samoses are magnetrons, so they control metal, and the Mirandises are whispers, so control the mind. Mare's job is basically to serve the high houses at this event like a waitress. They enter the Somerton Palace, called the Hall of Sun, which has an arena called the Spiral Garden, which is where Queen's Trial will be taking place. So, somebody calls for a servant, and this is what happens. Sir, I say, facing the patriarch who had called for service. In my head, I curse myself. Say nothing is the first rule, and I have already broken it. But he doesn't seem to notice and simply holds up his empty water glass, a bored look on his face. They're toying with us, Tolmas, he grumbles to the muscled young man next to him. I assume he is the one unfortunate enough to be called Tolmas. And honestly, that's the funniest thing Bone Marrow has ever said. The royal family comes out, and we meet the king, Tiberius Calor VI, King of Norda, Flame of the North. Completely off topic, but can I just say, and I've posted about this on Tumblr, so if you've seen this, no you haven't, that wasn't my account, I don't know what you're talking about, how did you get in my house? Anyway, I think this is so hysterical that he calls himself the Flame of the North, because canonically in the Red Queen universe, there is another kingdom called Siron? I don't know how to say it. It's not my fault. Literally so iconic because they are minding their business to the point where they're not even mentioned in the main 4 books. They're not even on the maps. If I had to tag myself as a nation in this book series, I would be them. Irrelevant, unbothered, minding my business, okay? Second of all, their king is also a burner. Excuse me, Tiberius the First, Second, Third, et al. Where do you get off? Calling yourself the Flame of the North, knowing there's another burner king up in this bitch. How rude. Siron, the other country is in the east. The other country is in the west, and Norda is in the east. So I could get if he called himself the Flame of the East, but he just went and claimed the whole ass North. Anyway, we meet the Flame of the North and Queen Alara Mirandis for the first time. We then meet the 2 princes, Maven and Cal. Big reveal, he's the crown prince, OMG! And he's also a general in the war that will be relevant later. This is the royal family dynamic. They're a mixed family. They're a blended family, and I love that for them, okay? The king married a woman named Corianne, and she had Cal. And then she died. She f***ed right off and died. Actually, she killed herself. More on that later. And then he married Alara and had Maven. So Alara is Maven's mom, but not Cal's mom. So chapter 7 is when Queen's trial starts. The high houses put forth their most eligible maidens to compete for the title of the next queen. It's important to note that there's an electric shield between the crowd and the arena. The ladies perform, I guess. Then Evangeline Samos comes out. She is a magnetron, meaning that she can manipulate metal, and sister of the one unfortunate enough to be called Tolmas. In a grand show of power, she lifts the entire arena and shakes it enough to knock Mare over the side of the railing. Mare comes crashing down onto the electric shield. Most people would be electrocuted and die a painful death before even hitting the ground, their mangled body burned to a crisp. But, of course, this would be a very lame end to the book. Mare comes crashing down onto this electric shield, and then she is inexplicably fine. All of the onlookers are obviously scandalized. A little red servant seemingly able to survive the electric shield. Inconceivable.
Inconceivable!
Evangeline is described to be shocked and afraid of Mare and sends shards of metal flying toward her. Mare throws her hands up to protect herself and, in doing so, accidentally sends a burst of lightning toward Evangeline. Mare starts to run away. The king orders for her to be caught. She actually gets a decent distance before ultimately being caught by Cal, who ends up being her biggest op. No, I'm kidding. She tries to use her lightning again to defend herself and escape, but doesn't know how to properly wield it, so nothing happens. Obviously, there's a lot more action and drama in this. I'm cutting it out for brevity because we still have a lot to get through. We're not even 100 pages in, and I've been recording for 44 minutes. Mare passes out. Chapter 8 opens with Mare having a series of memories from when her brothers were each sent to the war, to the news of Killorn's impending conscription and what happens to Giza's hand, etc. She awakes in a cell and realizes that the reason she was reliving all those memories was because the queen was going through her mind. So Queen Alara is a whisperer, meaning she can read and control people's minds. Keep up. Alara was looking for any indication in Mare's memories that she might be silver, which would explain why Mare could control electricity. She finds none. Mare is red. She is unhappy about this. Alara explains that the only reason Mare is still alive is because her little outburst happened in front of hundreds of silvers, members of the high houses, people who will ask questions, people with power. The royal family can't just kill her off. Mare meets Lucas Samos, cousin of Evangeline Samos, and officer in charge of handling Mare. He says, "In case you were wondering, the girl you nearly fried is my cousin. I almost choke on the air in my lungs, not sure how to respond. I'm sorry, it comes out like a question. Be sorry you missed her," he replies without a hint of jest. Evangeline is a bitch. Okay, Lucas, you're kind of chill, Lucas. Okay. Mare's taken to a room containing the king, queen, and the two princes. The king says, "You are something else, something I cannot fathom. You are red and silver both, a peculiarity with deadly consequences you cannot understand. So what am I to do with you?" Mare suggests they let her go, saying she won't tell anyone. They basically laugh in her face, saying the high houses will not forget her display, and the royal fam will need to come up with an explanation to appease them. They decide to hide Mare in plain sight, where they can, quote, watch her, protect her, and attempt to understand her. So she must marry the younger prince, Prince Maven. At first, Maven seems confused and bothered by this. They give Mare a cover story. Her name is Marina Titanos. Titanos? Not my fault. She's the daughter of Ethan Titanos, a member of a high house who was a soldier and who was killed in a battle when she was an infant. A red man took her and raised her, never telling her of her true parentage. She was ignorant of her birthright and ability until she fell into Queen's trial. When I first read this, I assumed that it meant that she just never knew who her true parents were, but on page 99, the king says, "Raised by red parents, she worked as a red servant, and until this morning she believed she was one of them." Later on page 292, Mare is forced to say, "I was raised by reds, I believed I was one." This leads me to conclude that the story is that she didn't even know she was silver, which doesn't make any sense because, she never, scraped her knees as a kid. She never had a period. She never bled once in her life to know that she was silver. Not only that, but, silvers have different undertones than reds. They're described to have a different blush than reds. Their blush is more like a white. Bruises would look different. Hickeys would look different. I'm just not buying that she lived her whole life to 17 years old and had no inkling that she was silver. Peace and love to all the high houses who bought that story, but, You tell that story to House Shenanigans, and I'm looking at you a little funny, okay? Alara, I know you cooked this one up, and you done dropped the ball here, girl, okay? Regardless, they say she could be helpful with calming down the Scarlet Guard because she will appeal to the Reds. This is Cal speaking. What Father is trying to say is that she represents an opportunity for us. If the Reds see her as silver by blood, but red by nature, raised up by us, they can be placated. It's like an old fairy tale. A commoner becoming the princess. She's their champion. They can look to her instead of terrorists. She's a distraction. The king says he will give her family an allowance to stay quiet. Mare negotiates that she wants her brothers and Killorn pardoned from the war, which the king grants. While the maids are getting Mare ready for her first dinner as a silver, Cal enters. He apologizes to her because he feels like it's his fault that she's in this position. He's the one who got her the servant job in the first place, and she also blames him for catching her when she was trying to run away. He explains that he knew she could probably get away, but the queen wouldn't stop until Mare was found, and by then they could just, quietly kill her and tell the high houses some BS story like she escaped and killed herself or something like that. In his mind, this was a safer alternative for her. The royal dinner is being held in the ballroom and all the high houses are present because remember, the winner of Queen's trial is expected to be announced. The princes match their parents in different outfits of red and black, both decorated with military medals. Cal stands to his father's right, his face still and impassive. If he knows who he's going to marry, he doesn't look happy about it. Maven's there too, on his mother's left, his face a storm cloud of emotions. The younger brother is not as good as Cal at hiding his feelings. At least I won't have to deal with a good liar. The royal family and Mare arrive in the ballroom. Mare is introduced and her cover story is explained to the high houses. As directed, Maven proposes to Mare and then Cal proposes to, shocker, Evangeline. Evangeline tells Mare that if she gets in her way, she will kill her slowly. Girl boss, slay. Maven and Mare have their first conversation wherein he tells her he is sorry for his protest earlier against, wanting to marry her. He explains that usually the younger prince gets to choose who he wants to marry and that's why he was against it. It's a violation of his rights. It's a violation of his freedoms, alright? I didn't know that, I replied, not really knowing what to say. I should feel sorry for him, but I can't bring myself to feel any kind of pity for a prince. He says, yeah, well, you wouldn't. It's not your fault. Not like my brother. He grew up knowing he'd never have a say in his future. I guess now I'm getting a taste of what he feels. You and your brother have everything, Prince Maven, I whisper in a voice so fervent it might be a prayer. You live in a palace. You have strength. You have power. You wouldn't know hardship if it kicked you in the teeth, and believe me, it does that a lot. So excuse me if I don't feel sorry for either of you. There I go. This is her, thinking this. She's not saying this. There I go, letting my mouth run away with my brain. As I recover, drinking down the rest of the water in an attempt to cool my temper, Maven just stares at me, his eyes cold. But the wall of ice recedes, melting as his gaze softens. He says, you're right, Mare. No one should feel sorry for me. This is where we get the first glimpse of emo Maven, okay? No one should feel sorry for me. Crawling in my skin, these wounds they will not heal. After dinner, the royal family, Mare and Evangeline leave the ballroom to go to the residence floors, which is where the family's rooms are. Cal lets slip that Maven's name is Mavie. Maven purses his lips at the nickname, probably what Cal called him as a boy, and now it's stuck, the emblem of a younger brother, always in the shadow, always second. Crawling in my... Mare and Cal have another conversation in her room, honestly uneventful. The next day, Mare reads her schedule, which involves a lot of protocol, which is learning how to behave in the royal setting, and lessons, which are the history of Norda and the royal family, and information about the high houses. We also learn that the high houses will remain at the palace and won't leave until after the parting ball, at which point everyone, including the royal family, will return back to the capital, Archeon. The window of the protocol classroom overlooks the indoor training hall. Men and women, all in uniform, dodge the spinning machine. It picks up speed, twirling faster until only two remain. They're quick, dipping and dodging with grace and speed. At every turn, the machine accelerates until it finally slows, shutting down. They've beaten it. This must be some kind of training for security or sentinels, which are the guards that protect the king, like the Secret Service. Anyway, but when the two trainees move on to target practice, I realize they aren't security at all. The pair of them shoot bright red fireballs into the air, exploding targets as they rise and fall. Each one is a perfect shot, and even from up here, I recognize their smiling faces, Cal and Maven. Mare goes to lunch and meets a couple of girls who competed in Queen's trial. One introduces Mare to her grandmother, Lady Irao. Not my fault. Who is suspicious of the cover story. After lunch, Mare has another short encounter with Maven. She tells him about Lady Irao, and he says he'll tell his mother, who will take care of it. They can't have people sniffing around Mare's tail lest they start poking holes in her story. He offers to show her around the palace, but she says she can't because she has to go to her lesson. By this interaction, we see that the ice she felt around him is starting to melt a little, okay? They're starting to become like acquaintances. We then meet Julian Jacos, not my fault, who is to be the tutor for her lessons. Julian is a singer, which means that he can use his voice to hypnotize people and to make them do whatever he wants. He's also Cal's late mother's brother, so Cal's uncle. In contrast to basically every other Silver we've met thus far, Julian is sympathetic to the Reds and believes that they are not inferior. To Mare's surprise, he knows her true origin and that she's a Red, but he says he won't tell anyone. Slay. Julian and Mare decide to start cultivating her ability, helping her to start training and learning to control it. They find that Mare has the ability not only to manipulate electrical energy, but to create it as well. This sets her apart from the Silvers, who can only manipulate. For example, the Colors can control fire, but they need special bracelets called flame makers to produce the first spark. They can't just shoot fire from their bare hands, they can only manipulate existing flames. This revelation that Mare is once again different scares her and she runs away. She needs fresh air, so she goes out onto a balcony. 2 sentinels grab her and try dragging her back inside. Maven appears and tells them to let her go. Mare and Maven sit outside together. Mare learns that Maven's life is hard too. He says that he can't just say what he wants, do what he wants, and with his mother around, he can barely even think what he wants. And he feels like he's always in Cal's shadow. Crawling! During this commiserating session, Maven catches on that Mare is homesick and he offers to help her. Surprisingly, Maven takes Mare to Cal's bedroom. No, this isn't that kind of scene, because Cal knows how to get in and out of the castle. Cal agrees to take her back for a visit, and Maven decides not to go. In a moment of overwhelming gratitude, Mare hugs Maven. Cal takes Mare to the stilts on a motorcycle. They have a long talk. Cal explains that he sneaks out of the castle to see his people, to see the world as it truly is. She tells him he should change the world. He's like, I can't just do that. It's not that easy. You don't know the bigger picture. They basically go back and forth about this for a few minutes until they get to Mare's house. She has a heartwarming reunion with her family, including her 2 brothers, but they tell her that her 3rd brother, Shade, unfortunately died before the discharge letter came. Mare comes to the conclusion that they found out he was in the Scarlet Guard and executed him, which causes her to, straight up crash out. And since she's not good at controlling her powers yet, it causes a surge of electricity. I kind of imagine it like the Avatar The Last Airbender when he gets into that, state, you know what I mean? Suddenly, Killorn is there, and he's the only one who manages to calm her down. Everyone is rightfully confused about what just happened, and they accuse Mare of being Silver. She has no choice but to explain everything to them. They think Cal is her security guard, and they promise not to tell anyone what she told them. Once she leaves the house, she starts thinking about Shade. She tells Cal she has to make one more stop. Mare goes to Will Whistle's. Cal waits outside. Farley is gone, but she meets a dude named Tristan, who is also part of the Scarlet Guard, and she joins the guard to avenge her brother. Mare and Cal get back onto the cycle, but before they can leave, Killorn shows up. He tries to convince Mare to stay. She doesn't. As she's leaving, he says, I'll tell Farley you said hello, meaning he's going to join the Scarlet Guard too. Mare wakes up the next morning. She sees one of the officers who brought her to the palace on her first day, Walsh. She mouths, rise red as the dawn, to Mare. She's part of the guard too. She leaves a small piece of paper with a message in Mare's tea that says midnight. Mare's schedule has changed. She's allowed to train with Cal, Maven, Evangeline, and the other teenagers in the high houses. While Lucas is escorting her to training, he heavily implies that he knows she's a Red, or at the very least, there's secrets that she's hiding. But he won't tell anyone. He's safe. She says, if I'm really lucky, Evangeline will be deathly ill and stuck in bed for the rest of her miserable life. And I should be nervous about walking into a room full of teen warriors, all of them better trained than me. Instead, I'm thinking about the insufferable icicle of bone and metal known as Evangeline Samos. LMFAO, this girl is living rent-free in Bone Marrow's head. I can't. It's so funny to me. Before training, Mare sits with Maven and they talk a little. She says he doesn't seem to be part of the crowd, nor does he want to be. He doesn't fit in, and he doesn't want to fit in. Hi, future me cutting in here to put something in that I forgot. I just wanted to read this part during training where Mare and Maven are talking about Cal and Maven's relationship, kind of. They're talking about the parting ball and who's gonna have to deal with, the worst of the attention, okay? So Maven goes, Cal, Big Brother has to tolerate too many silly conversations and dance with a lot of annoying girls. I remember last year, he stops to laugh at the memory. Sonia spent the entire time following him around, cutting into dances, trying to drag him away for some fun. I had to interfere and suffer through 2 songs with her to give Cal some respite. Respite? Respite?
Respite.
Respite. Ew, I hate that. The thought of the 2 brothers united against a legion of desperate girls makes me laugh, thinking about the lengths they must have gone to save each other. They all train together. Then Mare has her lessons with Julian, and they start talking about Cal's mother. Julian tells Mare that Corianne, Cal's mom, wasn't chosen in Queen's trial. The king married her because he loved her. He says, they killed my sister too. She stood in the way, and she was removed, and they'll do it again, to anyone they have to, even Cal, even Maven, and especially you. Finally, it's midnight.
Meet me at midnight.
Mare senses that the electricity in the palace has turned off, meaning that the cameras are off, so she sneaks out of her room and is quickly seized by Walsh. They go downstairs and outside where they meet up with Farley. To Mare's surprise, Maven turns up too. He wants to join the Scarlet Guard. Basically, everyone is in the Scarlet Guard at this point, okay? Maven explains that he thinks the world is wrong. He tells the story of how his father sent him to the war front when he was 12. He met another boy there, his first friend. He says, his name was Thomas, and I watched him die. I could have saved him, but my guards held me back. His life wasn't worth mine, they said. We learn that the king had been trying to cover up recent attacks by the Scarlet Guard, calling them accidents, training exercises, and lies. He's trying to make it look like he has more control than he really does. Farley devises a plan to attack at the parting ball. It's up to Maven to get targets for this attack. Training the next day consists of one-on-one battles. Evangeline challenges Mare. Mare tries to get out of it, can't. She actually holds her own against Evangeline pretty well, but towards the end of the battle, Evangeline cuts Mare's face. Mare cuts off the lights, and Maven grabs her before anyone can see and ushers her out of the room. Mare requests to be taken to Julian. Maven takes her there, though we learn that Maven and Julian have beef. Maven goes and gets Sarah Skanos, a healer. Sarah heals Mare. There's romantic tension between Sarah and Julian. Maven and Mare leave. As they're walking through the corridors, they run into Alara. Mare says something to piss Alara off. Alara retaliates by sending Mare back into a wall and grabbing her by the neck. Maven actually pulls Alara off of Mare, which is, like, out of character for him because he's a mama's boy. Her abilities hold on me breaks, letting me slump against the wall. Alara almost stumbles herself, reeling with shock. Now her glare returns on Maven, on her own son standing against her. Return to your schedule, Mare, he seethes, not breaking eye contact with his mother. I don't doubt she's screaming in his head, scolding him for protecting me. Later, Mare goes to lunch and finds that they're having a celebratory send-off for a Silver League of Soldiers, the Shadow Legion, I think they're called, Cal being one of them. He explains to her that they will disguise themselves as Reds and overwhelm the Lakelanders with silver abilities. Cal got the idea from Mare's falling into Queen's trial. Put a pin in this, we will revisit it and talk about it more when we get to the 3rd book. That night, Cal knocks on Mare's bedroom door and offers to give her dance lessons for the parting ball. Tea. As they're dancing, Mare brings up Sarah Skanos. She asks why he and Maven don't like her. Cal explains that Maven has his own reasons. Cal just doesn't like to think about her. He explains that Sarah can't speak. He says, she said things she shouldn't have, terrible lies, and she was punished for it. After their dance lesson, Mare walks back to her room to find Maven hiding in the shadows. I feel shivers run over my skin. Not in fear, though, but anticipation. The shivers deepen, electrifying my nerves like lightning as Maven takes measured steps toward me. He watches me blush with what looks like satisfaction. Sometimes I forget, he murmurs, letting a hand touch my cheek. It lingers, like he can feel the color that pulses in my veins. I wish they wouldn't have to paint you up every day. They put makeup on her and paint her every day to make her look silver, like hide her red undertones, you know? That's what he means by that, but that's not the point. The point is the shift in their dynamic. They're starting to become more serious. The chemistry is building, okay? Just as a few minutes ago, the chemistry was building with Cal in their dance lesson. The love triangle is forming! After this heated moment, he tells her that Farley made contact with him. She pressed Maven for names, people that they can target at the parting ball. Maven says he didn't want to give anyone up, but they had to act. He gave her 4 names of people in high houses, one being Evangeline's brother, the one unfortunate enough to be called Tolmas, and another being Colonel Macanthos. He explains that without her, the war front will be a mess, and the king likely won't send Cal to the front. Mare justifies this by thinking that the colonel's death will save Cal. Mare asks what happens if they fail. Maven responds, then we'll be traitors, both of us, tried for treason, convicted, and killed. Right, okay. Right, okay. Right. During her next lesson with Julian, we learn that the queen had Sarah's tongue cut out. Healers can't heal themselves, and no one would cross Alara's punishment, so Sarah is stuck like that. This isn't a game, Julian. This is life and death. I'm not playing for a throne or a crown or a prince. I'm not playing at all. I'm different. She's different. She's not like other girls. She's different. You are, he murmurs, running a finger over the pages, and that's why you are in danger, from everyone, even Maven, even me. Anyone can betray anyone. He's trying to teach her critical thinking skills, okay? Mare, can we get some critical thinking in the chat, please? Like, come on. Mare and Cal have another dance session. Mare says she can feel herself falling for Cal. He tells her he'll miss her when he goes to the front. But maybe the prospect of going off to war has made Cal bold and reckless, things he never was before. He takes me by the hand, pulling me to him. He's betraying his only brother. I'm betraying my cause, Maven, and myself, but I don't want to stop. Anyone can betray anyone. His lips are on mine, hard and warm and pressing. The touch is electrifying, but not like I'm used to. This isn't a spark of destruction, but a spark of life. As much as I want to pull away, I just can't do it. So the love triangle is now in full effect. Just before the parting ball, Mare asks Maven if he's afraid, considering what is about to happen because of them. He replies, I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of letting this opportunity pass us by. And I'm afraid of what happens if nothing in the world ever changes. He turns hot under my touch, driven by an inner resolve. That scares me more than dying. They're standing in the hallway before the ball. The king says, talking about Maven, the boy's just bored. Not enough excitement in his day, not like back at the front. You need a cause, Mavie. For a brief moment, Maven's annoyed mask drops. I have one, his eyes scream, but he keeps his mouth shut. Mare has a freak out during the ball because she realizes the gravity of what they're about to do. Maven talks her off the ledge and they continue with the plan. They give the signal, members of the Scarlet Guard shoot the 4 targets Maven gave them, and Mare uses her ability to knock out the power for 1 minute, giving the Scarlet Guard enough time to escape. All the royals evacuate the room except for Cal, who is determined to find the assailants. Lucas removes Mare from the room. There is an explosion and Mare is told it's a bomb. She's confused because a bomb wasn't part of the plan. Mare's taken underground to a secret bunker where she meets up with the rest of the royals. Cal enters and tells Mare to come with him. He is not happy. Oh my god, what the heck? He leads them to a dungeon containing 4 members of the guard they were able to capture. Walsh, Tristan, Farley, and Killorn. Cal questions Mare about her involvement because he recognizes Killorn from the night he took her home. Cal and a Shiver, who have the ability to freeze things, torture Farley by freezing and unfreezing her blood. Crazy work, by the way, Victoria. Like, how do you even think of this?
Just like thinking what you can do to a person.
Maven tries to convince Mare to leave. She does not. To our surprise, the one unfortunate enough to be called Thomas enters the room. He was not assassinated, as per the plan, and he is angry. Using his magnetron abilities, he breaks apart the bars of the cell and uses one to stab Tristan in the chest, killing him. R.I.P. my boy. Thomas turns on Killorn, but Mare places a hand to his neck, electrocuting him, not enough to kill him, but enough to stop him. She rationalizes it as if she's just trying to stop Thomas from killing them because they need information. Page 255 is high-key irrelevant, but I'm bringing it up anyway because I have a special edition of the book that includes a math error. The king asks how many dead. Cal replies 10 so far, 3 in the shooting, 8 in the explosion. That's 11. They have since fixed this, and in newer editions of the book, they print it correctly. I have one where it's wrong, and then in my special edition back there, the red one, it's correct. So the king is mad. He swears on everything that the Scarlet Guard will be taken down. Mare and Maven have a moment where they look at each other and they're like, oh shit, we done fucked up, you know? Mare then convinces Julian to help her free the 3 remaining prisoners. He uses his ability to hypnotize the guards and let Farley, Killorn, and Walsh go. Mare gets into a scuffle with one of the guards. He tries to shoot her, and she gets grazed by the bullet before knocking him out. Julian sings a healer guard into healing her. The next day, Mare meets Maven in the hallway, and he tells her that the bomb was an accident. A bullet punctured a gas line, and Cal's flame caused an explosion. But the royal family are using it to their advantage, making it look like it was a bomb to make the Scarlet Guard look more crazy and dangerous. Maven tells her they're leaving to go back to the capital, Archeon. Cal is pissed because the king won't let him go to the front to carry out his Shadow Legion because it's deemed too dangerous after the shooting. However, we learn that Cal and the one unfortunate enough to be called Tolmas are becoming closer. Tolmas controls the officers in the capital, and together they'll be able to hunt and kill the Scarlet Guard. Mare is mad at Cal for torturing Farley. Everyone is preparing to go back to Archeon by boat. Mare learns that Julian will not go with them. He says it's because he has a new position in another city, but Mare knows it's because he's on the run, for fear that the Queen will eventually find out his role in freeing the prisoners. He tells Mare that she reminds him of his sister, the late Queen. They hug, and he leaves. When Mare gets on the boat, Maven tells her that the sentinels who let the prisoners go have been reassigned, which is another word for punished. He also tells her that they found red blood in the cells. Mare freaks out because she knows it's hers from when the guard shot her. She tells Maven this, afraid that she will be caught when they trace the blood back to her using the blood database. And then his hands are just as cold as mine. For all his clever ideas, Maven has nothing to say to this. He just stares, his breath coming in tiny, scared puffs. I know the look on his face. I wear it every time I'm forced to say goodbye to someone. Another breeze sends a curtain of hair across my face, but Maven brushes it away and pulls me close with startling ferocity. His kiss is not at all like his brother's. Maven is more desperate, surprising himself as much as me. He knows I'm sinking fast, a stone dropping through the river, and he wants to drown with me. I will fix this, he murmurs against my lips. I've never seen his eyes so bright and sharp. I won't let them hurt you. You have my word. It seems like Cal is the lurker this time because he comes out of the shadows and tells Mare and Maven that the Queen wants them. Thank you, cockblock Cal. Mare watches as they pass her small village, and it seems like thousands of people have been forced to watch the king's boat on the lake, and they obviously don't want to be there. Yet another example of the royals exercising their power against the Reds just to prove that they can. The king and queen are terrible. We've established this. Moving on. They arrive at a building in the capital. Mare is given a speech to read on TV. She is to introduce the measures to the public, which is basically a punishment for the Scarlet Guard that makes all the Reds suffer. The measures include enforcing a strict sunset curfew, increasing security in Red communities, punishing any Red crime, including curfew violations, with execution, and lowering the conscription age to 15. King Tiberius is straight up sending children off to war. Okay, he's sending the children to war. Slay, I guess. This system of punishments is designed to dissuade Reds from joining or supporting the Scarlet Guard. They are to be upheld at all costs until the disease known as the Scarlet Guard is destroyed. The next day, Mare is in her room, stewing in her anger when she receives a gift from Julian, a book in which he explains that there is a certain group of people with red blood that have a genetic mutation causing them to have abilities. Mare is one of them. The government is aware of these people, purposely keeps them impoverished until they turn 18, and then sends them into the war, where they will be killed on purpose to cover up the mutation. He researched the blood database and found that 27 soldiers with this mutation were killed in the military, the last of which was Mare's older brother, Shade. The plot thickens. And when somebody tells you, the government wouldn't do that, oh yes, they would. You are not the only one, Mare. You are not alone. You are simply the first protected by the eyes of 1,000, the first they could not kill and hide away. Like the others, you are red and silver, and stronger than both. I think you are the future. I think you are the new dawn. And if there were 27 before, there must be others. There must be more. Okay, Dr. Seuss. Okay, he's got bars. He's rhyming there. Julian also sifted through the database and compiled a list of others with the same mutation. He tells Mare to give it to the guards so they can find these mutated people, mutants, if you will, assemble them like the X-Men, protect them, and train them. Before Mare can go and tell Maven about this discovery, Cal catches her. They have an argument. She tells him he can stop the unfair treatment of the Reds and end the war. He tells her it's not that easy. I thought that once, he murmurs, but it would lead to rebellion on both sides, and I will not be the king who ruins this country. This is my legacy, my father's legacy, and I have a duty to it. Cal also reveals that he knows his uncle was behind the prisoner's escape and allowed his uncle to get away. So, if that counts for anything toward his character, I guess. Cal tells us Maven had an interesting proposition. Basically, Maven's idea was to wipe Mare's records and information from the blood database so no one can ever find out that she was once born a Red. They have done this. They've removed her records before the blood in the dungeons could be traced back to her. So, lit, we don't have to worry about that anymore. At some point in this conversation, Cal also says, I'm a soldier, not a politician. Like, sir, like, are you not the next king? Like, suppose your father drops dead right now and you're talking about I'm not a politician. Be real. Mare and Maven tour different parts of the capital, including Bridge Market and an art gallery. Mare thinks to herself, Cal might be born to rule, but Maven was meant for it, and Maven is willing to change the world for us, for the Reds he was raised to spit on. Mare receives word that Farley wants to meet with them again. They're told to go to Hexaprin Theater, which is described as a place of entertainment, showing plays or concerts, or even some archive films on special occasions. And reminder, this is a dystopian story set years in the future, and I just know they're playing Titanic in this theater probably once a year. Because of course they are, because why wouldn't they, you know? When the theater darkens, Maven throws an arm across my shoulders, pulling me so close I can feel his heartbeat. He smirks at the secretary, now peeking between the curtains. "Don't disturb us," he drawls, and he pulls my face to his. The door clicks behind us, locking shut, but neither of us pulls away. A minute or an hour passes, which I don't know, until voices on stage bring me back to reality. "Sorry," I mutter to Maven, standing up out of my chair in an effort to put some distance between us. There's no time for kissing now, no matter how much I might want to. He only smirks, watching me instead of the play. I do my best to look elsewhere, but something always draws my eyes back to him. "What do we do now?" He laughs to himself, eyes glinting mischievously. That's not what I meant, but I can't help but smirk with him. The chemistry! Anyway, Will Whistle, the guy from the black market in the stilts, appears and pulls Mare and Maven into the ceiling tiles, leading them through the back rooms of the theater until they're underground. They get into an underground train, and Farley is there. They arrive in an abandoned city called Nairsea, which is being utilized by the guard. Killorn meets up with them at an abandoned cafe, and they all sit down to talk. Mare presents Julian's book to Farley with a list of names of people with the same blood mutation as her. They decide it will take too long to find each of them and train them, so Maven suggests staging a coup instead. "This might just be me," Killorn begins, falling back into his usual snide tone. "But I'm not exactly sure how you plan to get enough Reds in there to fight Silvers. You need 10 of us to bring down one of them, not to mention there's 5,000 Silver soldiers loyal to your brother," he glances at Maven. "All trained to kill, all trying to hunt us down as we speak." Maven says, "Legions are loyal to their generals, and I happen to know a girl who knows a general very well." When his eyes meet mine, all the fire is gone, replaced now by bitter cold. He smiles tightly. Mare says, "You're talking about Cal." When Maven answers, it's matter of fact. We give him a hard choice. Mare says, "Cal will never turn his back on his crown, on your father." Maven says, "I know, my brother. If it comes down to it, to saving your life or saving his crown, we both know what he will choose." Mare says, "He would never choose me." Maven says, "He will always choose you." Aww. This is my husband, and this is my boyfriend. And my boyfriend is actually my husband's brother, okay? Maven seems to be supportive of Mare Cal, okay? Maven and Mare arrive back in Archeon to find that some of the members of the Scarlet Guard working in the palace have been caught, including Walsh once again. Before the Queen can go into her mind and unravel the Scarlet Guard's plans, Walsh takes a suicide pill and dies on the spot. Early the next morning, Mare and Maven meet up with Farley outside the palace. The guard causes the bridge to collapse, and honestly, if I were King Tiberius, I would crash the f*** out. 4 a.m.? Are you kidding me? Does it ever end? I'm not a morning person. This shit would piss me off to no end. Cal comes running out, flinging orders, and tried to get to the barracks? Barack Obama? Obama! I'm not a military. He's just trying to get to lead the soldiers, okay? Cal! Cal! I scream over the deafening sound of 5,000 soldiers. Somehow he hears me, his head snapping in my direction. Basically, Mare kisses him and gives him a long-winded speech about how, "I'm part of the guard. You can save us. It's all up to you. Pick me. Choose me. Love me." But, much like Derek Shepherd, Cal does not, in fact, do any of those things. Actually, he gets pretty pissed off and sends Maven and Mare back inside the palace to be judged by the king. That didn't exactly work out, did it? Hi, this is me from a different day. Let's get back into it, shall we? Wake up! Everybody wake up! Pay attention! Are you paying attention? This is important. This is where things pick up, so I'm really gonna need your full undivided attention, okay? 1, 2, 3, all eyes on me, alright? The royals, Mare, and a dude named Rain Arvin all congregate in a soundproof room with no windows and no sentinels. Arvin was the training instructor for all of, that high house teenagers. His ability is to silence other abilities. Right now he's silencing Mare and Maven's abilities because they're war criminals or something, I don't know. Maven comes clean to the king about how he helped plan the entire thing, as well as the shooting in Somerton. The king accuses Mare of poisoning Maven's mind. The king decides that they must be held accountable for their crimes. Cal tries to reason with them and defend his younger brother, but the king is resolute. He tells Cal, "When you wear my crown, you will understand," to which Alara replies, "Fortunately, that will never happen." Alara then freezes the king and Cal into place by, like, mind control, like Samson did at First Friday at the beginning of the story. We love a bit of foreshadowing, okay? This is where things start to unravel. It's revealed that Alara got inside Cal's mother's head and drove her to, and that Sarah Skanos had her tongue cut out because she was trying to spread this information. Arvin releases Maven from his silence, but keeps Mare under his influence. Maven? I have to look up to see his face, and for a second, I don't recognize him. He's still the same boy, the one who comforted me, kissed me, kept me strong. My friend. More than my friend. But something is wrong in him. Something has changed. She says, Maven, help me up. He rolls his shoulders, cracking the bones to chase away an ache. His motions are sluggish and strange, and when he settles back on his feet, hands on his hips, I feel like I'm seeing him for the first time. His eyes are so cold. He says, no, I don't think so.
Huh?
Hey, yeah, pardon? What? Mare's thinking about Alara. She didn't care that he was part of all this. She didn't even look surprised. The answer is frighteningly simple. Because she already knew. Because he is her son. Because this was her plan all along. The thought stings like knives running along skin, but the pain only makes it more real. She says, you used me. Finally, Maven condescends to look back at me. Catching on, are you? He is Evil Kitty.
Oh, that's a good kitty, I say as I pet on Kitty.
No, I'm Evil Kitty.
Said Evil Kitty.
What if I told you I'm a mastermind? And now you're mine. It was all by design. This chapter is so well written. I greatly implore you to read the entire series, but especially this chapter. I would truly sit here on God's internet and read you the entire thing word for word. I would do it. I'm pretty sure that's frowned upon, but just know that I would do it, okay? That's how good it is. So everything starts to come out. We learn that this was their plan all along. Since Alara had gone into Mare's head in the beginning, she told Maven exactly what to say to get into Mare's good graces. Mare asks Maven if anything was true. When he shakes his head, I know that is also a lie. She says, even Thomas? This is her thinking. The boy at the war front, the boy who died fighting someone else's war. His name was Thomas, and I watched him die. The name punches through his mask, cracking the facade of cool indifference, but isn't enough. He shakes off the name and the pain it causes him. He says, another dead boy, he makes no difference. He makes all the difference, I whisper to myself. I think it's time to say your goodbyes, Maven, Alara cuts in, putting a white hand on her son's shoulder. I've struck too close to his weak spot, and she won't let me push further. Maven lets his father know how bothered he is, that his father seemed to favor Cal over him. Maven, we should have been a little more forthcoming about this before it got to this point, okay, buddy? This whole situation could have been avoided if we just had a little bit more communication, alright? I'm their family therapist now. In an emotionally crippling scene, Alara forces Cal to take the sword off of his father's waist, which, he's shaking and crying, struggling against her because he doesn't want to do it. And the whole time, the king is telling him, it's not you, I know it's not you, it's not your fault. Victoria, how is this allowed? Victoria, how did we get here? Another crazy thing, at the beginning of this chapter, the king is described to have a sword and a pistol on his waist. And I just think it's so interesting that Victoria not only gave those two options and then still chose the sword instead of the pistol, because in my mind it's more of a torture for Cal. Alara doesn't allow Cal to shoot his father from across the room. The sword requires him to be much closer. It's more personal to feel the weight of the blade against his father's neck. Crazy work. Everything is done for a reason. Another insane thing that I didn't even think about, but Cal points it out in the next book. He says, she twisted her way into my mind, controlling my body, but she let my mind stay. She let me watch as my arms took his sword as I separated his head from his shoulders. Yeah, I guess she assumed removing the memory wouldn't matter that much in the end anyway, because they were planning to kill him, but still, the most gut-wrenching shit I've ever read, I think. So, to make a long story short, I put a whole bag of jelly beans up my ass. No, to make a long story short, Cal does it. He, ends his father, unfortunately. R.I.P. King Tiberius, you weren't that great, but And if you haven't guessed by now, I am unfortunately Team Maven, okay? Even still, and we'll get there. He does get worse, but for now, just know that what he does next, is one of the most unhinged things I think he does. Oh, you thought he was already being unhinged? No, baby, we're just getting started, okay? He does a lot of unhinged things throughout the series, but this is top 3 moments for me, okay? So the cameras, which were previously off, conveniently turn back on now, making it look like Cal killed the king of his own volition. And Alara begins to put on a show, screaming and crying that her husband is dead. And Maven begins screaming in Cal's face, "You killed him, you killed the king, you killed our father." Crazy work. Crazy work. He could have, done what Alara's doing. She's, kneeling over the king. He could have focused on, my dad, my father. But no, he yelled in Cal's face. Even knowing that Cal didn't want to do it. He yelled, just doing the absolute most. The craziest of work, quite honestly. Maven, it's hard to defend you sometimes. And I will continue to do it, but, you don't make it easy. Cal stands there in shock for a second before Mare pulls him out of it and makes him run. They attempt to run away, but ultimately they are outgunned, outmanned, outnumbered, and outplanned, and they submit to arrest. And that's the chapter 26, which is titularly referred to in the fandom as the betrayal. So Mare and Cal are taken to a cell in the dungeons to await the Bowl of Bones, which is an arena where they will be executed. Cal confesses that he almost did choose her that morning. So, for what it's worth, I guess. Mare realizes that Maven, now king, will look for others with the mutation like her. Maven appears in the dungeons, and this is another part I would read to you word for word if I could, because they are spitting straight heat at each other. Line after line of just straight fire. Everybody's going in, and it's ooh, that's good. It's good, okay? Cal says, "Don't tell me you did this to protect a dynasty. You did this for yourself." Maven says, "Are you really so surprised? Poor Mavie, the second prince, the shadow of his brother's flame. A weak thing, a little thing, doomed to stand to the side and kneel. Betrothed to a girl with eyes for another, for the brother, the prince no one could ever ignore." His words take on a feral edge, heavy with a wild anger, but there is truth to them, a harsh truth I've tried so hard to forget. It makes my skin crawl. He says, "You took everything that should have been mine, Cal. Everything." Suddenly, I'm standing, shaking violently, but still standing. "I was never yours, and you were never mine, Maven." "Okay, girl. Okay, feminine omenon. All right, I see you." "And not because of him, either. I thought you were perfect. I thought you were strong and brave and good. I thought you were better than him." Unfortunately for us, Team Maven, those words had my boy sat. Forget about the past tense. Were doesn't matter. He heard someone speak those 3 words better than Cal, and my boy was sat. Okay? He was locked in. He reaches out a hand, grabbing at me between the bars. When his fingers close over the bare skin of my wrist, I feel nothing but repulsion. He holds me tight, like I'm some kind of lifeline. Something has snapped in him, revealing a desperate child, a pathetic, hopeless thing trying to hold on to his favorite toy. He says, "I can save you." The words make my skin crawl. "Your father loved you, Maven. You didn't see it, but he did." He says, "A lie." Victoria, I'm gonna start ugly crying. Then what? Then what happens when I start ugly crying? Mare promises she'll never make the mistake of loving Maven again. He gets mad and says, "So you choose him?" And Mare, now in her girl boss era, says she chooses neither. Good for you, girly, and everything, but, you are still, in fact, about to be executed for treason, so, congratulations, I guess. Mare asks Maven what he will tell the public when she bleeds, because the story was that she was silver, and the entire nation will watch them be executed and will see that she is in fact red. To which Maven responds with arguably the most fire line in the entire series. He says, "The truth is what I make it. I could set this world on fire and call it rain." Period. Okay? Maven reveals that anyone who knew anything about Mare being red will be killed, including Sarah, Julian, and Lucas. "I'll make the others scream for you, Mare. Every last one. Not just your parents, not just your siblings, but every single one like you. I'm going to find them, and they will die with you in their thoughts, knowing this is the fate you have brought them. I am the king, and you could have been my Red Queen. Now you are nothing." Oh, he said the name of the book! Roll credits! She says, "Goodbye, Maven," and then she thinks, "I wish there was more I could say, but there are no words for his evil. He knows what he is, and worst of all, he likes it." He dips his head, almost bowing to the pair of us. Maven says, "Goodbye, Mare." The smirk is gone, and to my surprise, his eyes look wet. He hesitates, not wanting to go. It's like he suddenly understood what he's done and what's about to happen to all of us. I have 3 older brothers, so when I spit at Maven, my aim is perfect, hitting him square in his eye. He turns quickly, almost running from the pair of us. I love Maven to death, but imagining him getting spit on and then running away like a child is actually so funny. It's time for Cal and Mare to be executed. She's able to see Lucas one last time because coinkydink, he's about to be executed too. Oh my god. What a small world. He's angry with her. He does not forgive her. He's taken into the Bowl of Bones, shot, and killed. So, R.I.P. Lucas. Cal and Mare are taken in next. They aren't going to be shot. They're going to fight to the death. When Mare sees Maven sitting up in the stands to watch, he's wearing his father's crown and the sword that was used to kill his father. Hey, Maven, like, what are we even doing? I swear by the end of this series, you guys are going to have me committed to an institution. I still love him. I love Maven Callor. Nurse, she's out of bed again. Nurse, she's back on her bullshit again. Talking about the guy from that fucking book. Yeah, the one who kills newborn babies, him. Chat, we are in for a wild ride. Here's the tea with the final battle. Mare and Cal are fighting 5 against 2. Mare's abilities are being silenced by the Arvin because Maven is trying to paint the narrative that she never had abilities, she was just tricking everyone somehow. While Cal is allowed to keep his powers, but we later find out Maven is limiting Cal's strength, so he isn't as powerful as usual. They're fighting against one nymph who controls water, one strong arm with super strength, one shadow who can control light and basically make themselves invisible, and 2 magnetrons. Who are they? You guessed it, our new favorite pair of siblings, the one who lives rent-free in Bone Marrow's head, Evangeline, and the one unfortunate enough to be called Thomas. They all fight. It's very action-packed. Read the book. I'm going to give you the most important parts. On the screens, Maven broadcasts to the entire country Cal and Mare's kiss, captured by security cameras, to make it look like Mare seduced Cal into killing his father. The sad thing is, I know for a fact that if this happened in today's society, one of you sick fucks would make it into a TikTok edit. Like, them standing there kissing and then him killing his father behind some sad song like, crawling back to you. Seek help. Mare cuts her face on Evangeline's outfit so everyone can see her bleed, and then she tricks the strong arm into hurling a sword at the Arvin so he dies, and no one is there to silence her. She gets her abilities back, people see her bleeding and simultaneously wielding her lightning. Inconceivable.
Inconceivable.
Mare then goes feral, killing the strong arm and dropping the nymph. Next, she confronts Evangeline, who realizes Mare's powers are not a trick, and she runs. Don't get me wrong, she's still a girl boss, though. Maven clears the arena because, excuse me, Mare, you are embarrassing me.
You are embarrassing me.
And orders thousands of soldiers to just shoot Mare and Cal dead right there. Basically, Mare summons a lightning storm that causes a big enough distraction for the Scarlet Guard to swoop in just in time and save Mare and Cal. Just yoinks them right out of there, okay? Epilogue. Mare awakes in an undertrain. Cal, Farley, and Killorn are there, along with Shade, her older brother, the one she had thought died, causing her to join the Scarlet Guard in the first place to avenge him. Yeah, that older brother. He tells her that they tried to kill him for his mutation, but they failed because they weren't fast enough. We learn he can teleport, that's his ability. She learns that her family is safe. So now it's just a matter of Maven getting to the new bloods first, which is what they call the people with, like, their same blood mutation, the mutants. The Reds with abilities, they're new bloods. The book ends with, even though they call Cal my enemy, even though they fear him, I let his warmth fall on my skin, and I let his eyes burn into mine. Our shared memories flash before me, parading every second of our time together. But now our friendship is gone, replaced by one thing we still have in common, our hatred for Maven. I don't need to be a whisper to know we share a thought. I will kill him. So Mare hates Maven. Cal hates Maven. God himself, creator of all, hates Maven. Me, I cannot say the same, y'all be safe. That is the book. We've just gone on quite the emotional roller coaster together. But it is not over. There are 3 more and like a book of like shorter stories. In researching for this video, I watched a couple of other people's videos to see what they thought of it. And a lot of other people do not have the same love in their heart for this series or this book as I do. I've heard a lot of people criticize Mare for talking about how much her family meant to her and then seemingly forgetting about them as soon as she got to the palace. I don't think that's true. She thinks about them and misses them occasionally, but for the most part, she focuses on what's in front of her. This is just me interpreting it, but like in her mind, there's no point dwelling on it when like she can't go back. It's not going to be the same as it was before. Like she's stuck here, you know? And the more times she goes back or like tries to get in communication with them, the more likely that she'll get in trouble for it and like they'll get punished. This is my life now. This is the life I have to live. So as long as they're like okay, like I think that's really all she cares about, and she just like suffers in silence. From the reader's perspective, I think it's fine. Like I think it would be annoying to read a story where she's like droning on and on about missing her family every other sentence. I think Victoria includes bits of that when necessary, but isn't too overbearing about it. Overall, I think Victoria is a very talented writer. She does a great job at pacing the story and also filling it with important plot points. It felt like every other page had something important on it, which is why this video is so long, because I wanted to make sure I covered everything. But I feel like I ended up just reading you the entire story, which, so be it, I guess. Even though the book was so, like, plot heavy, it felt like, and, like, you have to pay attention to make sure you don't miss anything, it didn't feel confusing or, like, hard to follow while you were reading. She's very good at, like, maybe not a slow burn, but, like, a medium-paced burn, you know, growing the chemistry between the characters and crafting compelling dialogue. Also Maven. Just Maven. I think he's a fantastic character. We'll get more into that in the next few videos where we talk about the other books. But he is just, like, I think he is the best villain in all of literature. I plan on making videos for every single one of the books in this series, and then maybe even one after just talking about Maven. Maven Callor is my Roman Empire, so I will unfortunately sit here and subject you to hours and hours of me talking about this. But this first book, while it was pretty good, was basically just setting the scene for the rest of the series, okay? It's the first ACOTAR, okay? It's background. The rest of the series is different from this book, and over time the characters are fleshed out a lot more. Like Evangeline, I remember she was a real thorn in my side when I first read the book, but by the third book I was like, yes, queen, I love her. So this is just like the bare bones, and then we're really going to start getting into it after here. But unfortunately, that is where I'm going to have to leave you today. Don't worry, I've already started working on the second book, so that's all I have for this video. Please let me know what you think. If you have something nice to say, leave a comment. If you have something not nice to say, leave a comment. If you liked it, please like, share, and subscribe. I post whenever I feel like it. House shenanigans clocking out, I guess. Okay, thanks, bye. Sorry if you can hear the birds outside. Birds be burden, I don't know. My notes say, read page 71 to 72 because I'm too dunderheaded to think of a summary for what happens. Mare is taken to a room containing the king, queen, and two princes. Most people, I don't know what that means. I knew I wouldn't when I wrote it, and here we are.